Okay, good morning, everyone. I wanted to say hello and see. Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Thanks for clicking on the link and checking out my first virtual lecture. I am going to be presenting example problems to you through a PowerPoint format with a voiceover. So it's very similar to what I did in class every day with you guys, except for obviously now we're not in person. If you do have any questions throughout the lecture or at the end, please feel free to email me at mccalls@sasd.k12.pa.us. This first lecture is just going to be kind of a trial run to make sure everyone is able to access this. And so, as you see, this isn't going to be very long. So what I'm going to go over with you today is a review of the exponent rules that we have already discussed in Chapter 7. As you can see in the first slide, the very first rule that we had was that when you have two bases with powers, if the bases themselves are the same, you add the powers. That was called the product property. The next property that we discussed was called the power property. So when you have a base to a power and then that all is taken to a power, you multiply the powers together. That was from chapter 7, section 1. The last one that we had from chapter 7, section 1 was called the power of product property, where if you had two things being multiplied together inside a set of parentheses and they are being taken to a power, you can basically distribute that power to both things inside the parentheses, and you'll end up with each of the bases having their own power. One thing to keep in mind, the only time that you can do this is when a and B are either separated with multiplication or with division. You cannot do this whenever A and B are being added or subtracted. The next set of rules we had were from Chapter 7, Section 2. The first one was the quotient property. So when you have two of the same bases and they are being divided, you can simply subtract the powers. Power of a quotient. Very similar to the previous slide, power of a product. The only difference here is A and B are multiplying, and in power of a quotient, A and B are dividing. You can also distribute this M to both things. Again, this only works for multiplication or division, not addition or subtraction when A and B are adding or subtracting. There was the zero power property, and very simply, anything to the zero power equals 1. The last property we discussed in Chapter 7, Section 2 was the negative power property. So if you have a base to a negative power, you take the base and the power and you put it on the bottom of a fraction and you put a 1 in the numerator. Please keep in mind that when this does go down to the bottom of the fraction, the power then becomes positive. This rule also applies if you have a base and a negative power in the bottom. However, the base and the power would move to the top. All right, that's the end of what I'm going to present to you today. This was just meant to be a test to make sure everybody can access my virtual lectures. Hope everyone's doing well. Been thinking about you guys. Take care.